welcome. Welcome everyone. And we are starting the Open Digitalization Conference. This is the first of our conference. And at the start, I would like to speak our CEO of Technic Insider and also of Horizon platform, which is our medial platform, which helping us to speak about these activities. And also they are creating amazing content more than 5 years about the digitalization. And that's how we connect. So probably Brian Thomas will introduce it a little better. So let's jump in.
Yep, we're just because good afternoon, everybody. Morning if you're in the Pacific time zone or somewhere else in the world. But I cannot share my video at the moment, only because there's a little bit of technical difficulties. But believe me, I would like to be on video, but it's okay. I think a lot of folks know who I am out of my social media account. So again, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're from. My name's Brian Thomas. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and founder of Horizon, but I've recently joined the team at Technic Insider, and I'm leading as this Chief Executive Officer. So again, welcome, thank you. And for the folks in the room, I can't be there physically with you, but maybe next time. We're really excited today to talk a little bit about technology. And we've got some exciting things to share with you. We definitely won't bore you today. There's some exciting things in the space of blockchain. Specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of use cases later on in the presentation. But what I'd like to do is introduce Tomas. In fact, before we do that, Tomas, if you could advance the slide to the second screen so people can see the agenda for the day. Yep. And if there are, and we're looking at the comments on the side in the chat. So if anybody has any questions, please raise their hand and I'll be sure to capture those. But real quickly, this is kind of the overview of our agenda for the day. We're going to kick off. The folks in the room have already done some introductions. So we're just going to step through this first part of the presentation. Then we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we'll go into some use cases afterward. But right now, the exciting thing I want to do, if you could advance the slide one more, Tomas.
Okay.
And I would like to, it's my pleasure to introduce Tomas Swoboda. He is from the Czech Republic. Tomas and I go back about a year. We collaborated on a project around NFTs and blockchain with the Horizon platform. And Tomas is a really excitable character. He's got me going over the last several months around the technology and some of the ideas he's bringing to the entire ecosystem in this space. He's a software architect by trade. He studied at the Technical University at Brno in the Czech Republic. And one of the focus areas he's really working on today, and we'll talk a little bit about that, is the application of blockchain in the creation of software tools related to it. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tomas.
Okay. Again, Brian.
Yep.
Okay, so I will probably skip this because Brian told everything.
Yeah, next slide.
I will go to next slide, and probably I will now take the speak because as Brian mentioned, we are doing the things around digitalization, and part of it also the blockchain, which is very fancy now, but it's just a part of the technology what we are working with. I will let me start with why the digitalization? Yeah, because it's kind of the buzzword today, and lots of factories are searching for some strategy how to digitalize their factories, but usually they don't know where to start because it's very wide field, very wide area, and it's consider all of the processes, all of the objects in the factory, and then they can continue with these fancy words around the industry 4.0, like collaborative robotic or RR, IR and VR. But the most important is handle their data, restructuralize the processes in the factory and precisely describe what they have inside a factory. And when you do this, at first you will discover what you have inside of your factory or any kind of industry. And to be honest, we saw lots of mess in there. Yeah, most of the processes were, even if they were described in some guidelines or whatever, it wasn't the same as in real processes and as they happen. So after we did the first steps, we discovered how these factories are unchangeable or digitalizable, or how to say it. And we had to start the detailed analysis of the whole factory. And then we discovered that most of these processes doesn't need to exist anymore. Yeah, with modern technologies, we can replace them or we can simplify them and remove them from the whole processes and create amazing savings because of the modern technologies. But until you will start analyzing these things like a digitalization and how to connect everything inside of your factory, you don't have the correct look on it, because usually the companies are focused to some operative management. They have a lot of troubles with warranty application, just-in-time delivery, and so on. And they focus just to solve these operating tasks, and they forget for the strategy. So the important thing on the whole digitalization is review your strategy of your company. Where are you aiming? Yeah, because most of the companies started with some automation and rebuilding their factory before 10 years or later. And now the markets are different. The components are different. The technologies are different. And that's what they should review and try to apply to their processes if they know what process they have. And that's why the digitalization is important. It will give you the look inside of your processes, and you can simplify them with use of modern technologies. Let me introduce some common use cases which almost everyone has in their factory. Yeah, it's mostly about the data and how we handle data and how we can use them for the feedback. For example, when you have a visual inspection in your company on some production line, most of the factories doesn't collect these images because they think, okay, we will catch just the wrong images or bad products, and we will not store the data of the okay parts. Yeah, but they didn't know that they have some secret trouble in their product, and after half of a year they will receive the warranty application, and they are looking for some huge data set which they can search through and find the root cause of these troubles. Yeah, and with the digitalization and the modern technologies, you can very easily store this data and go through them without increasing the costs of your IT, of storing them or backup them, because you can use some decentralized space like blockchain or IPFS or vector, which can store you both the images and also the data what you need to identify these images with some product or with some customer or production line. And if you will start to collecting this data, you can, for example, after 1 year, you will have a so huge data set that you can very easily train the AI, and it will find you the errors, yeah, what you have during your production. And you can eliminate drastically the stop or breaks during the production. Yeah. This is very simple use case. Just store the images correctly and allow them or be able to provide them to AI. Yeah. And most of the factories cannot do this because they are storing these data on old system like databases and some FTPs and whatever. And it's very hard for them to take these bunch of data, especially when they are old, so they have some backups and so on, and provide them, for example, to university. And we found the very smooth solution how to do it with use of technologies, what we will show you. Yeah. Okay, these use cases, we have a lot of them, and we will share them later, or you can find a few of them on our websites already. And when we will publish in January our strategy plan, you will see much more deeply how we think about it and how we are trying to apply the open source software to solve it. So the factories in these days don't need to invest huge money into the softwares to do or fulfill these tasks. Okay, I would like to ask how many of you know the Industry 4.0 4.0 term or buzzword? One? Okay, the half. It's still good, I think. Okay, the Industry 4.0, it started in Germany as a kind of a set of the visions. Yeah, it's a visions how to make the industry better with use of modern technologies, principles, or processes. So it's not some exact guideline how to convert your business into digital age, but it contains a lot of great ideas which is possible to implement with today's technologies. We select few of them which are most important and connect them into two complex frameworks which we will describe you now. So let's jump in. At first, what is most important from Industry 4.0, what you can consume as ideas, is this schematic. It shows you some kind of unified namespace. It's kind of data lake, which will hold all of your data in your factory in some unified form. And then you can connect all of these partial systems or some nodes which can connect into this unified namespace anytime and provide some data or read some data or subscribe some data. And with subscribing, it means that only if this data will be created, the node will receive the information about them. He don't need to ask anytime, for example, each 30 minutes, oh, is there anything new what I should receive, and so on. So this schematic will drastically decrease the number of the requests for the information in the factory. And if you imagine that with IoT concept, where each of these devices should communicate with some higher layer, in old system where you're requesting each 30 seconds or something like this, or each second, it will be unmanageable. The amount of the traffic on your network will grow drastically. That's why most of the factories need to switch to this concept in the instant of connection between of these systems, how they doing it now. Yeah, because usually they will integrate the ERP with warehouse management system or with whatever database, and it's connected like in this layer. Yeah, and it's bad because when you need to replace the whole ERP, you need to change all of these connections and then practically reconnect and redesign the connection of warehouse management system too. Yeah, and it's impossible if you consider that, for example, Netflix has over 600 microservices like this. And just imagine that most of them need to be connected to each of them. That's why the unified namespace architecture is coming, and you can apply this architecture to any field, yeah, in any scale. It can be for a small house, like in smart homes, where you have some unified IoT protocol, and it can work same for the huge factory or whole country. So that's why we focused to create some unified frameworks which works in unified namespace and helping to sort this data on this layer. Yeah. We are not working mostly on these particular on these parts. Yeah, like we are not writing on blockchain, we are not writing on database or ERP. We are writing PLFramework, which is complementary, but otherwise, we are focused mainly in our open source projects to handle data in unified namespace. If we would like to do this, we have to describe what is around us. And this is the second biggest idea in Industry 4.0, description and visions. It's called digital twin. Again, it's kind of the buzzword, and most of the people will imagine just some 3D model and not the data shape model and functional model. That's why I prepared this little simplified slide, which can describe that digital twin is set of the functions of this object or some system, and properties which describe them, and also the references. It looks a little similar like some database record or something like this, but it's much bigger because and also the setup of these steps, because in whole digitalization, as I described at the start, is discovering what you have in your factory and how does it work and how does it help to do your business. So at first, you have to know the functionality of everything what you have inside of your factory and how is it related to each other. Yeah, because the old system like databases usually described a very poor connection or relation between the records. Yeah, you had, for example, molding machine, and you just connected to one or two different tables, for example, like what you have on your workshop, or if this machine is free or not. Yeah, but in future production, there will be much more systems how the things are related to each other. And when we discovered this, it was when we run the AI for anomaly analysis. Because after you will capture data from all of these devices and you will put it inside of some AI, which are able to go through all of this data and bring you some spikes, like some anomalies, what they see. You will see the new relations between the parts of your productions. And it's very important to start with describing your processes together with defining the digital twins, because separately you cannot do it. So this is very, very important for any start of digitalization anywhere. It doesn't need to be inside of the industry. It can be the city. You can, for example, describe the fridge or a car or a parking lot or a trash bin, whatever you like. You can describe with this set of three main branches of description. We did it. And after we did it in the factory, which considers the 10 factories, local factories in Czech Republic, one factory in China, we planned the factory in Brazil. So it was a huge project, what we did as a first biggest digitalization strategy project. We spent a half of a year of describing just the models inside of the factory to be able to design some abstract layer which can cover them all. Yeah. And after this, we created the two complementary frameworks. Both are considered as some kind of unified namespace controllers. So both of them are using inside of them some unified namespace, usually through some IoT protocol like MQTT or some blockchain, and they can cooperate between themselves through all of these unified namespaces which are used in today's world and today's automation. The PLFramework is more focused to capture data from the production devices, create or simplify the production line software, which controls whole production line or separated stations. It can capture data from robots and so on. And VEFramework is much more for virtual economy applications or data handling, data storage, and creating some e-commerce applications and connect them through this unified namespaces, whatever the factory is already using or plan to use in future, and connect them directly to the production floor through the complementary PLFramework. So here you can see some simplified slides of the concepts or some architecture designs, and also the technologies what we are using. Now, lots of modern projects using JavaScript and these kind of languages, but we decided to write our frameworks in the C#. It's the language created by Microsoft, and in the past few years, it became absolutely huge and independent platform, which is mostly provided as open source. So it matches with our philosophy, and it provides a huge stable or highly stable the components libraries, which are usually provided from Microsoft, and they're used in the government projects, bank projects, or industrial projects. So on in the places where you need a long-term stability. And for example, in industrial use cases, when you have a project signed with, for example, VW, Audi, and these kind of companies, there are projects for more than 10 years usually. And when you need to provide the long-term maintainability, the selection of the correct language is, I think, very important. So both of our projects are written in C# and the .NET framework. And it means that with the new updates from the Microsoft, we are able now to run it on any device. Yeah, because it's multi-platform, so we can run it on the phone, we can run it on the computer, in a cloud, or even on such a small things like a Raspberry Pi, yeah, which costs just maybe $200 or something like this, and consume only 15 watts of energy. So only with this small charger, which consumes 15 watts or something like this, you can run the VEFramework and so on PLFramework, yeah, together with another technologies. So the main things what we put in as our ideas and the technologies what we found and architectures what we found as important for digitalization. I should mention probably IoT protocols, because I would like to start with them, because in the real world you have so many informations, and even if we have a blockchain, which is amazing technology, the IoT protocols, it's much more important on production floor, or for example in smart home, when I need the quick response and I don't need to store all of these data. I need to store the data from tests. I need to store the data or persistently, I need to store the data from tests. I need to store the data, for example, from controlling of devices remotely from some different place. But for fast communication between two peers or with some information system, I can use the IoT protocols. That's why we have integrated, for example, MQTT, and in next year we plan to integrate OPC UA protocol, which is widely used in industrial field, and also the other technologies we will grow. So the second part, very important, is blockchain. You know, before the start of this year, I considered the blockchain mostly for economy applications like cryptocurrencies, sorry, but it's maybe 1% of the real usage of blockchain. Yeah, it's totally amazing technology. I didn't know why I didn't discover it before, because it simplified me so lots of tasks what I usually need to solve during writing some software, like licensing, storing of the data, global access to this data. So it can remove you the central server. You can write the serverless application. And for example, we have one application written as an example how to use the VEFramework, and it runs on $5 web hosting, yeah, like $5 per month. And we have users in Guatemala, in the United States, in Korea, in Europe, and they all can connect 24/7. We don't need to pay for some expensive cloud server which can cover the global accessibility of this application. And with this application, you can write messages, encrypted peer-to-peer messages, including images or any other attachments. You can write your own post, you can share your photo, your music, you can sell all of these things thanks to the NFT drivers, yeah, and so on. We have a profiles, and Coruscant platform, and Brian is one of our proof of concept, because we are transferring his platform to blockchain and minting all of the NFT profiles with podcasts and also NFT articles to make them globally accessible without paying the long-term costs of running some huge centralized server. And I think this is pretty amazing about this technology. And with combination with correct technologies like IoT, or I will maybe describe in here, like IPFS, which can provide you decentralized storage, classic databases, which we will need to transfer data from old systems to new systems, and also some programming languages. We are connecting together really good puzzle, which can solve the very interdisciplinary tasks or challenges. Yeah. When I mentioned blockchain, maybe I will explain which blockchain we are using, because lots of people ask me why I choose the very forgotten blockchain. And I think it's not about some one particular blockchain. There are maybe 14,000 blockchains already. Most of them are just some hype and people want to steal money from another people. So that's why we choose the very forgotten blockchain, which is great technology, instead of some top 10 blockchains, which is only hyped, and they're trying to solve every troubles with just one blockchain, but that's not the solution. We learned this in the factories, because they took the IRP system and try to use it for everything, and it doesn't work. After 10 years, we are helping them how to disassemble it and create it partial again. So that's why we created the second layer framework, which covers different technologies. And we can connect not just the Niblio blockchain, which we are using this as a main layer now, but also different blockchains, such as Redcoin for tipping in the industry field, or for example, Hyperledger, which has been built by IBM, and we will integrate them next year together with Electrotechnic Association in Czech Republic. They are running their own blockchain based on Hyperledger. And that's how you can cover amazing number of the applications. Because, for example, you can write on Niblio, it's public blockchain, so some student can write his application on this blockchain, test it globally. And because he's using the same second layer with all the same drivers, he can just redirect it to Hyperledger when he wants to put this application into industrial field. Yeah. So Niblio is mentioned as the main layer because it's very easy, it's functional, it's global, fast, cheap, and so on. So we are using it for prototyping or some public application, some smaller application, or where you don't need some strictly ISO certificates and these things. And for the purposes of factories or some healthcare and these kind of applications, we are preparing Hyperledger solution or blockchain, which can run privately. So you can keep your data in some private blockchain. It is some kind of intranet in the company. And when you need to share this data to some public space, you can use the public layer of the Hyperledger blockchain or transfer the data to some public blockchain like Niblio and use it as a transportation layer between some private blockchains. And still you are using the same software, same second layer what we wrote, and everything is open source. This is some example just for fun. We created the web wallet, so it runs as a WebAssembly and you don't need to run the server. You can start it in any web browser, and it contains some simple proof of concept, what we had to test, like creating our own profiles as NFTs or creating some kind of images. We already minted, for example, X-ray images from industrial field, or some music, which can represent the audio recordings of, for example, sound test of products. Because when you have some product with the gearbox and with the motors, you usually need to record the music or audio file during this test or vibrodiagnostic test. And then you need to store the data same as we tested on some music or whatever. And because this application is written as kind of template, it's very simple to clone it and reshape it to your purposes. We tested this proof of concept too on DogeFT marketplace, which took our template, and within a couple of days, he changed some logos, some items in menu. He used own tokens because I didn't mention this, but Niblio is kind of infrastructure blockchain. So you can create for each purpose some sub-currency or sub-tokens, which can help you to handle and separate the data on the blockchain from each other. So for example, if you are Microsoft, you can create a Microsoft token, and then you can search all of these Microsoft token holders and work with just their data. So it can simplify you to create your own application on it. Okay, maybe. So that's probably very fast look through the VEFramework. And we will continue with these explanations in future too. So don't worry, because you know, the VE framework is huge. Just the strategy plan has over the 70 pages. So we selected just few points what to mention today. And I will skip into the PL framework. And if you will have any questions about the VE framework, we can answer them in the questions, or we can do any other explanation. If you will give us some topic what you like to hear, let's do another webinars about it. Okay, so now what is PL framework? It's a complementary to VE framework, and because we are mentioning lots of industrial use cases, I think it's worth to explain you what is PL framework. This application we started developing in 2019. It was the end of 2019, so it's considering more than 2 years of development. Now it's in private repository because we need to add lots of documentation, but in the first quarter, I expect maybe second quarter of 2022, we will publish it fully as an open source, even for commercial use cases. And maybe I will start to explain you PL framework with one example what we did. If you can imagine some assembly production line, which can consider about a 10 station or 20 stations, where you need to do some operation during the process of production, some assembled product. You have to build these hardware modules, and then you have to write the software. In few companies, industrial companies, is already able to do it parallel, but usually they don't have correct processes how to build these production lines to make it as parallel as possible and do the start of the production as the soonest date. When we switched in the Brano group, because I brought it on the use case of Brano group, I told about the 10 factories around the Czech Republic. They usually built the production line, and then programmer came and wrote, for example, half of year or 1 year, the software. After we switched to PL framework, we were able to shorten the time of start of the production when we receive the hardware from half of year to 1 week. And after 1 week, we started the production for Tesla. So this framework is a set of libraries, prepared applications, UI, and so on, which can simplify to design or and run the production line. Yeah, but it works same for the separated stations or just one robot, because it's considering some unified namespace, some unified architecture, and you can use just what you need. Yeah, so it can really simplify the start of each station as a standalone. You can test it separately, and then you will just run the different configuration. You don't need to rewrite the program or rebuild the program. You will just rewrite the text or change it through the UI. And it can immediately work for whole production lines. Again, same as VE framework, it's considering lots of some architectural patterns or some common technologies, and then some exact form of their implementation in the real world. So what I should mention is probably these 4 things. Yeah, because in every factory you have robots, you have PLCs, you have cameras and lasers. And cameras can read the QR codes or barcodes. Yeah? So we have them under the cameras. These 4 technologies is real trouble now because of a chip crisis. Yeah, most of the factories are not able to do start of the production because they are missing 5 PLCs for 30 station production lines. And that's the huge trouble. But usually they have the lots of spare parts and old PLCs in the stock. I'm talking about things like this. Yeah, you can take it from the old production line, and if it has the Ethernet connection and it's able to use it, one of the most simplest protocol, TCP/IP, just raw TCP/IP, it's able to communicate with PL framework. And you can take the old PLC next to the new PLC from different brand, and still you can use it together in PL framework. Yeah, and for example, after a couple of months, when some company who is producing the PLCs will deliver finally the PLCs, what are you waiting for? You can switch them during the pause break. Yeah, so that's one of probably the biggest advantage of the PL framework. we were able to do it because we are using the structured text in so simple form, similar as you writing some code for microcontrollers. You will totally forget their libraries to be independent. And then you can take this code, which is under IEC standard, and you can use it in all of these PLCs. Yeah. And thanks to this, you are able to combine the production line from anything what you will find around just to fulfill the start of the production correctly. Yeah. And then you can do some refactoring of it. Same with the robots, same with the cameras, and same with the lasers. From each of them, we have several producers which are compatible with our softwares, and other are coming. Yeah. So for example, in robots, we are now have the ABB robots. We already tested the communication with AUBO robots, which are US-based robots. And we are in discussion with the Stoibli, which jump into to our VEFramework open source project. And we would like to together create the new interface between the Stoibli robots and our application PL robot. So then you will be able, through one open source application, control and acquire data from all of these robots. And I think just the ABB is the huge case, because we can connect to also old ABB robots, control them or capture their data for maintenance or tracking the position real time and these things. And there are all already installed over 300,000 robots just from the ABB. Yeah. So when we will connect most of them, I think just this one tool can be a real breakthrough. So here are some examples of some screenshots from PLFramework, but again, it's a huge environment considering more than 10 applications, which each of them has some UX. It can help you, for example, to capture data from each station on the production line, when the product arrived, how long does it take to be on stoppers before he will go inside of the production station, how long each of process will take on the station. And then you can save this file, provide it to your co-workers, process engineers, because it's in text form. You can collaborate on it and versioning this file. Yeah. So it can help also to simulate the production lines, because everything what you have inside PLFramework, you can run in production floor, but you can run it absolutely same in the simulator. Yeah. So most of these process engineers who is designing the production line are able to simulate all of these times and times between the stations and these things before they will put the production line into the field. Same as with robots. This is, for example, recording from ABB robot. So we can precisely capture the robot positions, and, for example, find if someone will push into the robot, because even if we will push his arm, we can see it on the graph data. Yeah. And the last image is from controlling of pneumatic valves, because we did a huge driver for controlling these valves, measuring time between them. So the valves will inform you if they are slowing down, yeah, not after they got stuck, yeah, but before they will get stuck. You can set up the level, for example, 20% of time, which is limit for fulfill some operation. It will give you information. Okay, I'm gonna be broken, so some maintainer should look at me and prevent this situation before it will occur. Yeah. And okay. So because of chip crisis, we thought how to replace the PLCs if there will be no PLCs available. Yeah. And because of partnership with company Hardvario, it's a Czech-based company, but they have also some offices in UK. We have access to this amazing device, which has been designed primarily as an IoT gateway, which can provide you some information, again, to some unified namespace, for example, in a cloud and so on. But it has prepared the connections to different sensors and different protocols, what we are usually using in the industry. And for some simple production stations, you can almost immediately use it as a part of the PLFramework. Yeah. So even this kind of hardware can save you production because you can put them next to the PLC if you are missing, for example, one PLC. And after you will receive it, you can take this box, and because it's very unified, you can use it for measuring temperature next to your molding machines, yeah, or casting machines, because it can capture whatever you will connect in. And how does the production line looks like? Yeah, I'm talking all the time about the production lines and assembly production lines, but this is what we have designed in with cooperation of Brano Group. Yeah, they have a huge department for producing these production lines, and we changed the concept from one compact production line to these kind of modules. We have already about 10 kind of most common used modules, and for example, a robotic module, considering just or is possible to connect with almost any robot. You will just put it there, whatever you will use. If a KUKA robot, ABB, Stoibli, doesn't matter. Yeah, so most of these stations are unified, and they contains all what you need for running them separately or in the chain. Yeah, and this concept amazingly helps when you need to start the production as soon as possible. So we already have it. And for example, this production line, it was for building Tesla backseat latches. And because of this software and this concept, we start the productions in the correct time. Yeah, so I think it was a great proof of concept for us, even if it was the first modular type of this production line what we built in Brano Group. It works absolutely perfectly. So now we are preparing some mass production, and whoever who will need to use the PLFramework, you'll be able to buy these stations or build them if they are already creating some similar concept. Just to mention this, because it's very important part of these modular concepts, because when you have the modular software and when you have a modular hardware, you can play with it like with some puzzles or Lego. Yeah, because after 1 month, after we started this production line, we discovered, oh, new customer wants the very similar product, and it would be able to deliver it fast with suitable price, but we cannot build or cannot afford the new production line. But because these stations are unified and few processes was unified, we were able just put few stations, make it in almost the circle, because there were enough place on the workplace. But because of this modular system, we were able to curve it and use it in this shape. Yeah, and it helped to start production for new customers much faster. Yeah, so these are the things from PLFramework, and probably I will show you one video from our partner, because we are cooperating with several industrial partners. You will see which are those on the last slide, or you can find them on our web pages. And most of them are related to industry or some fields in testing or inspection. And I would like to mention and show you a video of company Kinali, Kinalisoft. They are located also in Brno, same as we came from, because maybe I didn't mention it. I'm from Czech Republic originally. And they're using Albo robots to fulfill some automated inspection tasks. They designed the whole separated station for inspection, which is able to communicate with the PLFramework and VEFramework too. So let's see what we can bring together to the market. So this is the Albo robots. Most of the people know the similar from UR, Universal Robots, but this robot has been designed with engineers from MIT, and together with a Chinese company. And I think these are the amazing robots because they're using the same motors for the last 3 joints and 3 free joints, or first 3 joints. So it can reduce the cost for maintenance, for keeping the spare parts, and with amazing accuracy. Yeah. So this is the example of the testing bed for electronics for another Czech company. Because of the universal architecture of this station, you are able to put there X-ray or CT scanner or visual inspection, vibro diagnostic, electric scans, and so on. So, our part will be just the delivery the system, how to handle data, how to provide them to on another parts of supply chain, or the factory who is building these robots, or the factory who is using the products which are tested. Yeah, so this is our part in this cooperation, and our partners already doing this hardware and this software. So that's what we are looking for since we started this project. We are not looking for hiring the 100 people who will be our employees or something like this. We are looking for the partners who already have some solution in the industry or in any other fields, because these platforms are unified, and we will connect their technologies to this unified namespace. And we already have partners like this, so I think it's pretty is going pretty well. And because we are offering our software as open source, they can immediately jump in. They can immediately search through our code to see if there is everything correct, or if there is some backdoors or whatever. That's how we are trying to deliver the trust into the industry software, because most of the softwares in the industry are proprietary. You cannot access the software or code of these softwares. And when the company doesn't have a time to support you, you are lost. You cannot rewrite it, you cannot reconnect it, you cannot change it. That's why we decided to put all of these frameworks as open source. Yeah. So what are our next steps and goals? Yeah, we already did some basic development and proof of concept. So we know that all of these platforms work correctly. It needs just some refactoring to make it stronger, to make it more stable and documented. So that's what we are planning to do in the first half of 2022. We already found the company who will help us with some part of refactoring, and we are looking for another partners who can help us with the refactoring. We are also looking for some investment, because now we are investing whole projects from our savings from previous activities. So we are self-angel investors, or how to say this. And because this project is growing much faster than we expected, and I think it's good, but we are looking for support in this field too. Yeah, because we need to inform the people about these activities, improve the documentation, do more webinars and these things to learn the people how to use it. Yeah. And the release of the VEFramework 1.0 is planned to first quarter of 2023. It's live already, so anyone can use it as a beta. We ran few proof of concept for a whole world market, and you will have the information about one in the workshop part of this Open Digitalization conference. And so I'm sorry, I was lost. Okay, so also we are looking not just for investment, but also the partners who can, for example, take few of already existing departments or people inside of their company and focus them to improve this open source environment. Yeah. And I think it's worth it, because inside of these frameworks, there are more than 7 years of our exploration of the industry, digitalization, and all of these fields. So I think it's worth it. And I think in most of the cases, it's better than giving the money to some startup to help them improve it from inside of the company. And companies which has about 100 persons and more, or employees and more, I expect that they have few people there who can help us to explore this environment and create it for everyone. So in the field of the application, we already prepared few things which are really useful for most of the factories. Yeah, it's a hardware register integration. So you will be able immediately capture data from your factory, yeah, from old devices, and these boxes or these IoT gateways are, I think, the best solution what I found. Yeah, because it's easy, it's very unified. So anytime when you need to move it to a new application, you would just change some sensor and you can use the same boxes. So that's why we decided to integrate them, and they're already on the market a couple of years. So we believe that this technology is very stable, and after these years, it's proved that it can work in industry. And for example, they have installation in Škoda Auto, and also in Peugeot Toyota consortium in Czech Republic. So they already tested it in probably most difficult companies for these kind of innovations. The second application and adoption will be a data management system for invoicing. Yeah, we are cooperating with company HCM Line from Czech Republic, which are implementing partner of SAP information systems. And we already have on board a few customers who are waiting for our solution, and we will start to show them the demo of this application in the start of the January, maybe half of the January. And the first releases should come about the second quarter of 2022. Then PLRobot. PLRobot is already part of the PLFramework, so we just need to prepare better documentation, some pictures, screenshots, maybe a little refresh the UX and UI. And we would like to deliver it in third quarter of 2022. And in the fourth quarter of 2022, we will introduce the home node, which is device based on something like Raspberry Pi or some one-board computer, which is cheap, and it can solve the home automation, the connection to blockchain and e-commerce blockchain projects, and also the sharing data between factories and storing them in the homes of the people. So it can replace also much more like personal storage of images and these things. And we will introduce this device in the start of January in our strategy plan. So you will see what it can fulfill as challenges for every one of us, and how it can help to create some sustainable economic and some sustainable connection between the people and the factories in some area or in some country. And in the next year, after we will release the VEFramework 1.0, we already are speaking with a couple of cities about the proof of concept of digital city. Yeah, because when we discovered that we can connect the schools with the industry, or healthcare with people, or with government or industry and so on, we decided to do some proof of concept of digital city next in the 2023. Because with all of these tools, we discovered that we can save more than 80% of time of delivery, or creating the software, the implementation, and long-term maintenance. So if we would like to be eco, we should focus to things like this and test it on at least one city. I'm pretty sure that everything will work same as we tested in factories or in smart home and so on. So these are some kind of our plans and goals for the next 2 years. We already have much longer plans, like 5-year plans and so on, but for now, I think it's a good overview what we are preparing. Okay, we are getting probably to last part of my presentation, and here you can see some partners we have on board to public blockchains. Or I should mention the Dogecoin, because we integrated Dogecoin just for the fun and testing how long does it take to integrate new blockchain. It was 3.5 hours. And the main partners are probably Coruscant, Hardvario, HCM Line, Kinali, Brana Group, who is producing the stations, Ella Blockchain Services, and more partners are coming, and each of them has very amazing solutions, which we will integrate or they will help us to integrate into VEFramework or PLFramework. So